So in this example, we're going to look at some National Weather Service data. It's posted on this website here. And you'll notice that we're limited to downloading 5 years of data at a time. That's probably because when it pushes the data out, a script creates an Excel file, and Excel can't handle much more than 1,000,000 rows of data at a time. But I thought what we'd do is take a look at 11 years, 10 years of data to see if there are any trends in National Weather Service alerts. Here what I'm doing is taking a link to the file and I'm going to import it to Gigasheet like this. This just saves you from downloading the file to your desktop and re-uploading it. I've already done this with about 10 different files, and it's actually faster depending on bandwidth that you have to your desktop. So you can see here, Gigasheet loaded the zip file and it's decompressing it here. It's about a gigabyte, just over a gigabyte of data. Now, this data set comes with shapefiles, keyhole markup language files for looking at it on maps. But in this case, we just want to look at the raw data. So I'm going to delete these other files and just look at the CSV. So this will take a second to load. You can see it's parsing the data now, and now it's loaded the CSV. But we could just open this and inspect this single file for the year 2011. But what we're going to do is combine it with the other years and the other files that I've already done this with. So I'll go ahead and move this to the folder that I'm working in here. And I'll delete this folder just to clean it up. And you can see all my files are here that I want to combine together. They all have 24 columns and their formats match exactly, so that's perfect. And we'll use the combine file function here. I'll create a new file name. And I'll click save. It'll take a second to combine these files. And you can see the new file here appears at the top, and it has 4.9 million rows. So we'll open that and take a look at what we've got. Information comes in about every alert from the National Weather Service for each year. They've got a bunch of different tags here about wind. Is it a tornado? Is it an emergency? That sort of stood out to me, as well as some other information. There are lookup tables available for these. You can use the crossfile VLOOKUP if you wanted to bring in the full name. We're not going to do that here. I thought what I'd do is look at time series data. So the first thing I want to do is explode this date to month, day, year, hour, and second. But I can't do that because it wasn't auto-recognized as a date. So what I'm doing here is converting this column from a string to a date format. And I use the convert data type function to do that. And you can see here this blue column is where it's been converted to a date. So now when I go to explode date, I should have this as an option. And I do. So now I'll apply the explode date function, and what it'll do for all 4.8, 4.9 million rows is add columns that give me more granular detail about the date. So you can see here I have month, day, year, day of week, hour, minute, seconds, and so on. I don't need all of these for my initial look at this, so I'm just unchecking columns here to hide them. But I do want to look at this data by year. I'm kind of curious if these National Weather Service alerts and advisories have been increasing over time. And you can see that I've grouped it by year, and I get a row count for each that shows for each year how many of these were issued. Now what I'm doing is highlighting about 10 years of data. So I selected from 2022 to 2012, right click on that and create a bar chart. So it doesn't really look like there's any significant trend there, but I thought I'd dig a little deeper into this. When I'm looking across at the data here, I can see that there is this column for is emergency. That's false. I want to quickly filter this out. So I right click and choose exclude this because I only want to look at emergency issuings. I'm kind of curious if that maybe has a different trend. And there's actually far fewer advisories and warnings and watches that are emergencies. So we'll look at that data as well. I also saw that there's a column over here that includes a tag or data point about is it catastrophic. So I'll again right click and filter to include this. And basically what this is doing is updating the filters. I could have done this manually in the filter panel. I just find that shortcut is a handy way to quickly explore the data. So now we're down to quite a bit less than when we started with the 4.9 million. We're down to something like 13 rows, or 13 groups rather. You can see actually that 2021 really stands out in this data set here. So here's the filter panel where I could modify this query or build more complex queries. In this case, I'm just going to remove that, see if there's any difference when I remove emergency and just look at is there other catastrophic events that are occurring that weren't considered emergency. Data looks to be the same in this case. You may also want to do a subgrouping and break this down by month. I didn't get into a whole lot of detail on that here, but you can see not every month was there an emergency or catastrophic event, which is good, I guess. We could also look at this by other trends and patterns. I don't know that there's going to be anything significant by day of week, but in different data sets that can be more useful, particularly in things like sales data or network traffic data. You'll see patterns by day of week, but in this data set, I don't know that the weather really follows that. But this is just a basic walkthrough of how you can do temporal analysis on really big data sets using GigaSheet. Hope it's helpful. Thanks.